Shut up and sit down.
Hey folks, today is hopefully going to be the third and what I hope is going to be the final installment of my GMC Envoy oil pressure ordeal. And I've got to run to the store. I'm going to pick up a shop light. I've got to run to the gas station. I'm going to pick up some kerosene to do my engine flush. And when I get back, I'm going to be replacing the oil valve, oil pressure, oil filter bypass valve. And while I'm working on the car today, I'm also going to be replacing the C-Pass, the camshaft position actuator solenoid. I'm getting a check engine light with an error code P0014. Hopefully that'll take care of that issue. And I'm also going to hook up a 0 to 100 PSI oil pressure gauge so I can check pressures when it gets down to that lower range. So let's run to the store and we'll come back and get to work on the car. I was wondering if you guys sell kerosene? Alright, we just got back to the house and I was driving around for about 25 minutes or so, maybe just some stop and go driving. Had to run to Walmart, had to run to the gas station to get the kerosene. Just pulled back in the driveway, and before we get started I just wanted to give you a frame of reference on the oil pressure before I do anything. And driving around, I did not have any issues on the dashboard. I didn't have my check engine light come on or low oil pressure notice pop up on the driver information center. And also on the gauge here, it is reading pretty low. It's, I don't know, it's hard to tell from this, but it's certainly below 14, maybe around 7 psi or so. Let's see if it'll focus on that. There we go. So it's really low. But again, no issue, no warning lights on the dashboard. And we'll see what happens after we do the engine flush, change that oil filter bypass valve, and just give the Envoy a little love. Alright folks, before we get started, I just want to do a baseline of the oil. I just want to see what it looks like. Now this oil is about 400 miles old. So it's relatively clean. It's darn near new. So we're going to put the kerosene in. Going to see what kind of sludge we get out of the oil. There we go.
Come here.
Go ahead and run this for about 10 minutes and then we'll drain the oil. There's just a shot of the oil pressure gauge as we're running that kerosene through. The car is almost up to operating temp. And looks like we're running about maybe 20 psi or so. Alright, so after the engine has cooled down a little bit, we've ran it for about 15 minutes or so with that kerosene in. One thing I didn't show is I did add another 8 ounces in the engine, let that run for just a few more minutes. Primarily because this is a 7-quart motor, it takes 7 quarts of oil, so I wanted just a little bit more. So that wound up being about 3/4 of a quart of kerosene in the motor. So I'm going to go ahead and check the oil here. Let's see what it looks like. Get just a little bit more on there. Let's see.
We approach the 4-minute mark of the second half catch and shoot. A little long drive the last couple. That could be fatigue. Nadeau gives it up.
Alright, so there's the second round, or the after shot. Here is before. Let's see if I can get that lined up for you well enough for you to see. So there is before on the right. There we go. Before on the right, after on the left. So this was before kerosene and then after the kerosene flush. To be honest with you, I don't really see much difference. I know there's on this side it looks a little bit lighter. I think that may just be attributed to the oil bleeding into the rag or the paper towel, but I don't see much difference. We're going to change the oil now, and what I've done is clean out my oil pan as best I can just to get all the gunk out of it. That way, when I drain the oil, I'll be able to get a really good feel for what's in there and what came out. Alright, so I just finished draining the oil, and you know, I see just a little bit of gunk here. So, you know, perhaps the kerosene flush, you know, helped out a little bit, just get some of that gunk out of the engine, but not a lot. Just a couple pieces here and there, like that one there. So, I don't know, I'll let you be the judge whether or not that kerosene flush worked well or didn't work at all, or somewhere in between. Alright, my next step was to try and replace the oil filter bypass valve, which is this little guy here. And this is only a $5 part. It's spring-loaded. Let me show you where that goes. That goes on the front side of where the oil filter screws on, and it seems like it's pressed in, and I can't get it out. I don't have a tool to get it out. If you have any ideas on how to get that thing out, get that valve out of there, let me know down in the comments. But what I did, just to try, I just took a little eyeglass screwdriver and bent the end over just to try and put it in the valve and pull it down. But I was able to get the screwdriver in the valve, but it seems to be pressed in to some degree, and I wasn't able to back it out. But what I did, just to check is looking for my screwdriver here. There it is. There it is. What I did just to check the functionality of it, I just took a little Phillips screwdriver, put it in the valve, and just check. That seems to be working. The spring seems to be working. It seems to be seating fine. So I'm not going to tear it up trying to pull it out. Alright, I've got the oil changed. I actually went ahead and replaced the C-Pass, the camshaft position actuator solenoid, because I was getting a code on the engine. And I tried, as you saw, I tried to replace that oil filter bypass valve, but that was a little bit too tricky. Also, seemed like it was working well, working as it should, so I didn't replace that. Also, let me show you what we did. Went ahead and replaced, or I swapped out the pressure gauges. So now I have a 0 to 100 gauge, so we'll be able to see a little bit better down at the lower end what the pressures are doing. Well, let's go ahead and get the car started up. Looks pretty good for initial startup. We're going to go drive around maybe 25-30 minutes, kind of get the car to the condition, operating temp where we saw the issues earlier on, and then we'll have something to compare it to. Alright, so here's what we got about 10 minutes into our test drive. We're doing 70, 2,000 RPMs. Gauge on the dash is still showing about 50 PSI, but take a look at the other gauge here, showing about 8, maybe 7 or 8 PSI. We're going to drive just a little bit further, come up to a stop sign, and see what it does there. Coming up on a traffic light here. This is where it normally gets a little squirrely on the pressure. So again, dashboard showing normal. Take a look at the gauge there. That's, gosh, that looks like about 5 or 6 pounds if I can tell right. It's kind of hard to see, but it is definitely low. RPMs are 650 where they should be. I'm going to pull over here at the gas station. We'll just let it idle for a little bit. Alright, we pulled over here in the gas station just to sit for a little bit, let the car idle. Again, we're idling about 650 RPMs. The gauge is still showing 40, which is really just an idiot light on the dashboard on these 6-cylinder Envoys. But the oil pressure light is not triggering. And again, we take a look here at the gauge, and it's showing about 5 or 6 pounds. Rev it up a little bit, goes up to about 10, drops back down. But I want to show you something interesting. I'm going to shut the car off, let it sit for just a second, and then restart it. And I want you to see what the oil pressure does. There, we shut the motor off, start it back up. And then it jumps right back up to 19 or 20 pounds. It's slowly dropping down. But it's kind of interesting when you shut the motor off for just a few seconds and then turn it back on, it shoots right back up. You know, it goes from about 5 or 6 pounds up to, you know, 18 or 20 pounds. And if you've got any ideas on why that is, let me know down in the comments. I'm kind of perplexed as to why that happens. Still showing 16 or 17 pounds. So we're gonna head on back to the house and we'll check the pressure when we get back. Alright, so we just pulled back into the driveway. We drove about maybe 2.25 miles from the gas station back home here. Let me show you what the engine's doing. Yeah, again, got normal pressure on the dashboard. No warnings. So we'll come over here to the manual gauge, and we're reading right around 11 pounds, maybe 11, 12 pounds, something like that. And again, if you remember, this is, you know, after we shut the engine off just for a second or two, restarted it. So, you know, I don't know if this is really conclusive. Not really convinced I really fixed anything with that engine flush, to be honest with you. I guess, you know, it could have cleaned something out. I'll take a look at the oil after, you know, when I dump it into the catch pan. I just don't know, to be honest with you. I'm gonna have to see how the car acts over the next couple days or so, you know, driving it back and forth to work. We'll take a look at the oil pressure, look at the manual gauge, and, you know, other than that, really the only conclusion I can come to is that, you know, I've got 255,000 miles on the motor. You know, maybe the motor's worn out just a little bit. You know, another conclusion is possibly the oil pump is worn out a little bit. Or, you know, a third thing is that the O-ring on the pickup tube to the oil filter is starting to give way. But, you know, again, I'm still running 10, 12 pounds of pressure on the manual gauge. My idiot light's not coming on. I don't have any check engine lights coming on. So that's kind of where I'm at for right now. I'm just going to keep on driving the car. So anyway, I hope this video series was helpful to you. You know, if nothing else, to show you how to change your oil pressure switch, you know, show you where the oil filter bypass valve is, although we didn't change that out. You know, show you how to hook up a manual pressure gauge to your motor. And that's really all I can say. I don't really have a concise conclusion on why my oil pressure has been fluctuating, but you know, I'm hoping with that filter change, with the engine flush, you know, all those things combined, I'm hoping that helped just a little bit, you know, to get me maybe another 25, 50,000 miles. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. Again, I hope this video has been helpful to you. Let me know if you got any questions down in the comments, or if you have any ideas on the pressure. I'd certainly be interested to hear those too. But again, thanks for tuning in. Hope you have a great day.